Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a disassembly as well as a sneak preview of this little guy right here. This is the Spyderco Sage 5 Lightweight. This is a knife that I think a lot of people have been very interested and curious about, and myself included, because, and by the way, I do want to make clear, although it's no longer apparent, the centering was right on here, the action was good to go. So as we're putting it back together, we need to get back there. But this is, like I said, a very hotly anticipated knife from Spyderco. It was announced that I think sometime in the middle of the year, although I think they might have previewed it at SHOT or something like that. Either way, it's a very interesting piece, and it's a follow-up not only to the Spyderco Sage lineup, but it's another one of the FRN lightweight versions, of which the Chaparral was one of the better knives, frankly, last year, and a really, really excellent option. So I think a lot of people are very hotly anticipating this particular piece of pocket knife. And honestly, I don't freaking blame them. I mean, the Sage design is great. The Sage 5, I believe, was a shining gem on the channel. It's a knife that I found myself recommending not irregularly. And so the idea of there being a lightweight version of that is actually kind of interesting. One thing to highlight, though, and one thing that actually caught me a little off guard when I first looked at it, is that this has actually got full liners on both sides. There is the FRN outside here, but for instance, unlike the Para 3 lightweight, which is entirely a plastic for most of its construction, so to speak, lock bar aside, this guy has full steel liners. This is analogous, I believe, to the Chaparral lightweight, which also has full liners. But yeah, so this is fundamentally, in some ways, a different knife than the Para 3 lightweight in terms of its lightweightitude, but it remains an interesting choice. I'm going to go ahead and try and pop this guy loose here, and what I'm doing is using this little spudge tool to get everything out of position. Kind of pry things up a little bit, because what I think we might have going on here is a little bit of peening on the lanyard hole, but we'll see. The Tai Chung knives, okay, see, this top part just popped out of the way. That's going to make things a little easier. The Tai Chung knives are usually pretty nicely made, and one consequence of that is that things fit nicely to tolerance and whatnot. So anyways, almost there. I'm just taking it slow, taking it gentle here. Actually, can I remove the blade? Oh, I'd kind of like to remove the blade, just so that way I'm not popping things, you know. There we go. So blade's out of play now. That makes it a little easier to just get in here and then pop this the rest of the way off. That way I'm not even worried about any of the, maybe the lanyard tube is a little peened open. We will see. Oh no, it's popping off. All right, cool. That was easy enough. What we can see here are, well, actually not a whole lot of surprises. This looks a lot like another compression lock knife. It's using whoa, never mind. Hold on. Lies. Total lies. Check this out. This is a pivot bushing. This is 100% a pivot bushing. This guy goes around the pivot and is, let's see here. Does this go inside the washers? No, it looks like it's trapping the washers. And that probably explains why the action's so damn good. It's just like any other compression lock knife. Yeah, okay, sure thing, Nick. Anyways, no, we have a pivot bushing here, which is cool. So this guy actually sits inside the pivot here, like this, and then provides just a little bit more smoothness on this guy as the knife rotates against the washers there. That's always a nice thing. We see phosphor bronze washers here. We see all the... Wow, that's a beefy pin for the compression lock there. I mean, that makes sense. That's an important pin. But nevertheless, aside from that, though, aside from all that weirdness, let's see here. We only have... No, we also have an internal stop pin, as well as the... Yeah, we have a second internal stop pin here, which again strengthens this. This is actually not a conventional, particularly knife at all. In the Spyderco tradition, that is. They've done a couple of things that make this very, well, not very different, but that definitely make this a little different. This is, I think the Spyderco Capara CQI version is maybe the first of their compression lock knives to move to the pivot bushing sort of thing, but I suspect it won't be the last if this brand new guy is doing that. That's interesting. And you've also got this additional second stop pin here. You can see the 10-ball hole, everything like that. Oh, there that went. All right. But yeah, and we can see that there is this second stop pin in there to, I gather, reinforce things. That's cool. They've really actually done, they could have done this a lot, maybe, I don't know about easier, but yeah, I think they could have done this a little easier, but they sort of went a little bit of an extra mile here, which I do appreciate. So this is in many ways why I like doing these disassemblies, right? Because I would have looked at this guy and been like, oh, it's a compression lock. Hey, I mean, you heard me. I said that. It's because I'm not a brilliant man. But nevertheless, but then actually taking it apart, I realize, oh, wait a second, this is a little different than I expected. That's a beautiful thing. I don't know if I already plugged nickshabazz.com/tools, but it's a good idea too, because if I don't do that, then I'm going to get 1,000 people asking, Nick, hey, what kind of Loctite are you using, etc. It's right there, people. Okay, popping the pivot back through here. Looking at this is fresh from the factory, so there's not a lot of rotation that's gone on with this. However, it appears that the direction of rotation is right here. So I'll go ahead and I'll drop that down there. I'm going to go ahead and use some knife pivot lube for this. I tend to like the action it gives a washer knife a little bit better. And I know that some of you are probably going, Nick, I don't want to see it taken apart. I want the sneak preview. Well, you'll get there. I'll do that at the end. But this way, in the future, once I've published my actual full review, people will be very easily able to, actually, I didn't need to lubricate the pivot there because the bushing is not going to be rotating. Instead, the knife will be rotating on the bushing. Whatever, not a big deal though. But anyways, this way this will serve as a disassembly video for once the full review is out, and no one cares about my first impressions. Although perhaps it'll be an interesting meta question to see how my first impressions differ from my eventual final impressions. All right, go ahead and put this here. A little bit of lubrication there, and again, I'm just checking to see if there's any sign of rotational scoring, which implies which side of the washer might want to go against the blade. I have barely carried or used this guy. Actually, I have really not, so I'll go ahead and put it that way. All right, so am I leaving anything out? No, pin is there, that's there. I will go on ahead and I will lubricate the detent ball here, as well as the detent ball path. That'll make things just a little bit smoother, potentially, but the knife was not unsmooth. Seeing that pivot bushing in there, although it's unexpected, is certainly welcome, and seems to be reflective of the overall smoothitude. Okay, so what we have here is everything popped back into position. That was a lot easier to take apart than to put back together, and part of it could actually be there's some evidence of the white thread locker that Tai Chung likes to use. So part of that's probably that. And actually, come to think of it, I've used T8 for all of these screws, which is a beautiful thing. T8 driver, that is. So, you know, hey, no arguments there. I am duly impressed, I will say. The fact that there are a couple of extra mile things here that makes it clear that they didn't just like, hey, let's make another one. That's nice. That's really nice to see. Yeah, so go ahead and I'll tighten these guys up. I'm just loosely tightening them. That doesn't make any sense, but I'm not putting a whole heck of a lot of torque on things until I get the pivot into position. All of these things are in place there. Alrighty, using some blue thread locker. And we'll go ahead and tighten this down. Alrighty. Holy crap, that's smooth. That's the nice part of a pivot bushing, is it actually controls the spacing there, so I don't really have to think twice about dialing the spacing in. It is right on point. So right now it is absolutely fall shot in just a spectacular way, with the centering dead on and not even a hint of blade play. Yeah, there we go. So first impressions of this knife. First off, let me put these things away real quick and get the review portion of the table exposed, so to speak. This is, my first impressions are actually quite positive. My biggest question for this knife is sort of in its comparisons, right? So, first off, size comparison, Spyderco Delica, just for those of you, playing along at home. Ontario Rat number Paramilitary 2. Ontario Rat number 2 is coming up here soon. This is Spyderco PM2. And so what we can see here is that size-wise, we are actually, sharp and blade length, pretty much identical to the Delica here. And actually, size in the pocket, the Sage is maybe a little tiny bit bigger. So that is something to keep in mind. But actually, it's worth comparing to a couple of the other FRN knives out of Spyderco these days. Right here we have a native 5 lightweight. This is an LC200N1 that's been dyed, and so what you can see here is in terms of blade length, the native is actually slightly shorter in effective blade length. Here it is against the Spyderco Para 3 lightweight. Blade length is almost identical, and in fact, blade profile is relatively similar as well. One of the major differences between the Para 3 and the Sage 5 is the blade stock thickness. The Para 3 is a thicker blade than the Sage 5 is, and so for some tasks, especially ones that favor slicitude, that's going to be a factor. And then actually one other point of comparison here is the Spyderco Chaparral lightweight, or I'm sorry, FRN, I suppose. This also has full liners. In terms of blade length, they're actually not all that dissimilar. It looks like maybe a quarter inch or so. But in terms of size in the pocket, the Chaparral is much, much smaller. It's also much, much thinner. It's a very, very slicey blade. So if you're looking for something that's very, very slicey, the Chaparral is probably where I would send you. But these three knives are in a lot of ways in direct competition. Chaparral is a lockback, which is a fundamentally different locking mechanism, and in some ways much less satisfying than a well-tuned compression lock, and boy, is this well-tuned. Even relative to the Para 3, which is running, and this is, by the way, the DLT Trading M390 Para 3. I bought it because I'm a weak man, and I like the Para 3 lightweight design. I haven't really broken it in, haven't even taken it apart yet. But anyways, what we can see here is in terms of size in the pocket, they're roughly identical here. The Chaparral is a little bit smaller than both of them, actually substantially smaller, but they have a lot of similarities here. This is a Taichung Spyderco. This is US made, this is Taichung. But nevertheless, that's sort of there. In terms of overall sorts of things, in a lot of ways, a lot of my feelings from the Sage 5 review are going to be relatively similar here. The ergonomics on this guy are absolutely on point. There is a little bit of a hot spot off the wire clip, but that's sort of always the nature of the beast with the wire clip, and it ain't bad particularly at all. The action on this guy is just sublime. That pivot bushing, oh man, is that nice. And just, you know, overall, it's really, really nicely done in that way. Oh, by the way, I forgot to do this. I'm not reviewing, but this was sent to me directly by Spyderco. So do keep that in mind. We assume this is the best quality controlled one ever, and I'm doing my best not to let that affect things. So there you go. One thing to note is that they are actually doing the blade labeling. Looks a little bit different than normal. It's a little bigger than normal. Got me off guard a little bit, but keep that in mind. Holy crap, is that thing smooth. Fit and finish-wise, we are absolutely on point. There's really no complaint about particularly any of it. Pocket clip positioning is good. Lanyard tube didn't win this time, which is a very nice thing. Really, okay, in terms of negatives, the one thing I will say, it's a little heavier than I expected. I'll throw it up on a scale here, and I'll also measure the blade. Although it's a Sage, so you know exactly where the blade's at. It's right under 3 inches, legally speaking. And, well, legally speaking, ask a lawyer, but, you know, measurement speaking. And it is coming in under 1 ounce an inch, so it is relatively lightweight, but it's actually not as lightweight feeling, for instance, as the Para 3. To some people, that might actually be a perk, because the Para 3 lightweight, for a lot of folks, feels too light. It feels almost I don't want to say toy-like, but, you know, it feels very, very light. Whereas this guy has more of a feeling of like this is an FRN scaled knife that happens to be a Sage 5. You could really, I think they could have gotten away with calling this the Sage 5 FRN in the same sense that they called this the Spyderco Chaparral FRN. I don't know, but either way, it didn't come across like when I took it out of the package, I was expecting like lightweight versus this guy, which is absolutely lightweight, but it's not that crazy. Biggest feelings, like I said, it's size in the pocket wise, a little smaller than the Para 3. For me personally, a lot of people are already asking, Nick, is it a keep? Like, dude, I've had it for 20 minutes. But if I were to make a prediction, I would say I like this knife. I think it's going to be a very, very solid knife. And in fact, it's got a pretty good shot at being a gem because it's doing a lot of things right, and it's going to be a nice choice for a lot of folks. For me personally, though, I sort of suspect the Chaparral's going to end up winning the day still just because it's that much more compact. It's that much more slicey. Oh, by the way, it is, yeah, it's pretty damn thin behind the edge, too. Good grind and everything like that. S30V versus XHP, not a big deal. But, you know, look, I'm so far so good. I'm pretty impressed with it. The only thing that's the elephant in the room here is the price. This was literally announced yesterday. So I don't know what the price point is going to be on this guy. Well, not on yesterday, but a couple of days ago it came out in the Spider Bites or whatever. That's going to remain a big question. As soon as they become sort of available price-wise that I can figure that out, maybe I'll pin a comment down below giving my feelings there. But for the most part, technically speaking, they've done a lot of stuff that's extra miley. Putting in that pivot bushing, putting in the extra stop pin, all those things serve to make this a very, very nice knife, and that action is really impressive. I was a little worried that this would be a very slow compression lock action, as we've seen sometimes in the past. No, this is damn good. And overall, it's a great design. The Sage is a classic for a reason, and it's done with the FRN, etc. So I think for a lot of people, this could absolutely be a nice piece. But anyways, keep an eye out for a full review once I've had a chance to spend some more time with it. But because this appears to be one of the very first ones in the wild, I figured I'd both do the disassembly so you can see inside and give some first impressions, because oh my god, are people beating down my door about it. So there you go. Hope this has been interesting to you, and have yourselves just an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. I hope I've given you some very sage advice here today, even if I am a bit of a lightweight. I don't drink, that's probably true. Anyways, I digress. Hope this has been interesting. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.